All right, I have 7:01. I hope everyone can hear me. And if you can, I will call this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. So if we could have a roll call, please.
Sure. Give me just 1 second.
Sure thing.
Was having some technical difficulties getting my Bluetooth headset to work, so now I'm just using the plugged in one. So, okay. Here we go. All right, Mr. Allred.
Here.
Ms. Billman.
Here.
Mr. Fell.
Here.
Mr. Fitch.
Here.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
Ms. McFarland.
Present.
Ms. Weiskopf. Or Mr. Weiskopf, sorry. And Ms. Yu.
Here.
Great. It appears we have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
There are none.
Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. This is the regular commission meeting from March 18th, 2021. Do we have any motions regarding the minutes?
I'll vote to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Fell, second by Ms. Billman. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes? No, in that case, I believe we need to do this by a roll call vote whenever you're ready. Mr. Garcia?
Okay. Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Ms. Billman.
Yes.
Mr. Fell.
Yes.
Mr. Fitch.
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
Ms. McFarland.
She said yes, but I'm not sure we heard you, Ms. McFarland. You don't look like you're on mute, but
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Yu.
Yes.
the minutes are approved. We have communications tonight. I believe there were a couple of emails that came in. And then I would like for us to introduce our new plan commissioner who we failed to do, I think, at the last meeting. So let's do that first. Ms. McFarland, welcome to the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you. And now if there were some communications, at least a couple of emails that you might want to touch on.
There were, I believe they had to do with, both of them had to.
Both of them had to do with the new business case, I do believe.
Right. Kat, are you available to run through those?
Yes, let me pull them up real quick. Okay, so we received 2 emails with some concerns about the South Ridge 8 preliminary and final subdivisions. I'll just generally summarize them, and I believe both of the members of the public who wrote in are present at tonight's meeting, so they can address those comments during the public input period as well. But the first letter of public input addressed some concerns about the types of housing currently being built in the neighborhood. Most of the houses in the neighborhood are now the same model, and the question was, will the new phase include the same types of housing? There were also concerns about the property values based on the fact that the homes are being built at a lower price point than many of the pre-existing homes. There was another question about the construction of roads during the subdivision construction, and concern about trash and litter and materials that are being brought onto the site during road construction. A member of the public also brought up the fact that there's currently no homeowners association for South Ridge, and the member of the public asked if that would be the case going forward with the new subdivision as well. And then, excuse me, moving on to the next letter received, there were some questions about drainage and the topsoil that is currently in the property that's being considered for South Ridge 8. One thing to clarify from a staff perspective is that the neighbor notice sent out showed the entire parcel that is being subdivided for South Ridge 8, where only part of that parcel, the east-west side of the L shape, will be considered for South Ridge 8. But I believe Carl Hill is planning the northwest section of that parcel for South Ridge 9. So he can address that a little bit more during the staff report. But the second letter of public input really just addressed drainage concerns and the topsoil that is on that property now, and how those lots will be graded and drained during construction. And that's about it for those two.
Thank you very much, Ms. Trotter. I do have a question regarding procedure. We have on the agenda a public hearing regard to the hazard mitigation plan. Then we have this item of business that's going to come up, which is new business. Are the procedures for an item of new business the same as a public hearing? In other words, should I elicit public input at that time or afterwards in the audience participation?
I think it's fine to do it at that time.
I would prefer to do that if it's okay with everybody. Great. Then I'll treat it essentially like a public hearing. Okay. And so then, are there any further communications? There is no old business, so we have a new public hearing. This is Plan Case 2419 CP21, request by the zoning administrator to adopt the Champaign County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan 2020 update as an amendment to the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan.
Yes. So I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Susan Monty from the County Planning and Zoning Department. So if we could get Susan Monty as a panelist, and then also Scott Tess. He was our Urbana staff member who was on the planning team.
Hello, I'm
Hello.
Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'll give like I said, a brief introduction. So this hazard mitigation plan is an update there were two previous plans, the first in 2009, the second in 2015. This is a multi-jurisdictional plan, so it's countywide. And this is something that we have in the past adopted as an element of the comprehensive plan. I did want to point out in the memo, it said that this update was prepared by the Regional Planning Commission. This was actually prepared by the Planning and Zoning staff at the Champaign County Department of Planning and Zoning, as well as a 10-member hazard mitigation planning team. So we are recommending that, like previous versions, this be adopted as an element of our comprehensive plan. These hazard mitigation plans are good. It keeps the city in good standing and eligible for mitigation, grant funding. It also helps Urbana residents remain eligible for lower flood insurance premiums. But with that brief introduction, I will turn it over to Susan. She is the one who spearheaded this whole project, so she can speak at greater depth about it.
Hi, good evening. Hi, I'm Susan Monty. I'm a planner at Champaign County Department of Planning and Zoning, and I apologize for the confusion. I did work at the Regional Planning Commission and shifted over to this department for budgetary reasons primarily. So much of the same tasks followed with me, including the update of this hazard mitigation plan every 5 years. So yeah, thank you for having this on the agenda. It's an important update, as Kevin mentioned, to keep the city current and eligible for various benefits. I don't have a long presentation. I don't have cameras. You can't see me, but I can share my screen and am able to talk about various aspects of this whole process and content of the plan to some degree. Essentially, every 5 years, we follow requirements of the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, which is very well defined and an established framework for planning and updating plans. And so there's things that need to happen, and each update essentially is an examination of having the most current data available to plug in to various risk assessment models, updating all of the maps, updating all of the information that we have access to. So we work, as was mentioned, with a planning team representing the larger of the populated jurisdictions participating. And we have an advisory team that works with us, comprised of experts. This year, or this 5-year update, the Illinois State climatologist from the Illinois State Water Survey was on our advisory group. Our planning and zoning director served on the advisory group. We had principal scientist from the Illinois State Geological Survey, a senior professional scientist from the Illinois State Water Survey, and the water supply engineer, acting chief of engineering studies. These are long titles, but each contributed to updating the data for various natural hazards and certain man-made hazards. I just want to mention that the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires local governments to address natural hazards such as tornadoes, flooding, and severe thunderstorms such as those. And most hazard mitigation plans nowadays have been updated to also include man-made types of hazards. So the natural hazards are required, and the plan, since its third iteration of being updated, now includes man-made hazards. Let's see, what else did I want to mention? What we're looking at is a HAZUS model map showing City of Urbana has this map for the floodplain, 100-year flood. And essentially, this is a very boring map, but it does, and it's very hard to read.
Excuse me, Ms. Monty, we can't see your screen right now.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've tried to share and something has gone haywire, or there we go.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
there
you for
it is.
mentioning that. It's
Sure.
not an exciting map by any means.
Well, it's good to be able to see it at
Yeah.
least. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it simply shows buildings that can sustain damage and where those are located. Nothing is identified specifically. And this whole model, this HAZUS model that was used to as part of the risk assessment process for floods is intended to estimate losses and better prepare the city for what to expect in the event of a 100-year flood. So that's, for some reason, I just started talking about floods, but I think maybe I would just ask you to ask questions if you have them. Each 5-year period, the planning team from the City of Urbana this time included Scott Tess and Kyle Hench from the fire department. And essentially all of the hazard mitigation actions that were identified in 2015 were carefully examined and updated. I can get to that page. Hold on a second here. There we are. Just a moment. Page 202. So you've seen this. It was provided in your packet. And if you have any questions about these mitigation actions, Scott Tess also is here at the meeting and can address some of those questions. But new this update, we identified primary hazards of concern to the City of Urbana. No surprise, it was just a feature that was added this update. And there were 6 identified not new, but primary hazards that were just called out as completely obvious. Whereas in previous versions that had not been included. So I will stop talking just because you may have some questions and that may be more the way to proceed at this point. Thank you.
I'm unmuting now. Are there questions for Ms. Monte from the planning commissioners?
I have a question.
Mr. Fell?
Partially, I guess, for my own information, if you didn't know, I'm an architect, and I haven't dealt with the 100-year flood line, I'll say, for a few years, but we have several times, and the FEMA map is notoriously incorrect in its location of the 100-year floodplain. So my question is, do we use local survey information to establish that? Or are we relying on the FEMA map? Because I don't know, but I would assume relying on the FEMA map puts more of Urbana in the 100-year flood, and I don't know if that's detrimental to our city or not.
Yeah, yes. This plan does rely on information collected by FEMA and the Illinois State Water Survey and the Illinois floodplain maps. There is a process in place in case there's ever any question about that boundary. You can question that and challenge it. And so, yeah, these maps were recently updated. In 2013, they were updated. So each time they're updated, they become more accurate, hopefully.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I've got a couple.
Mr. Hopkins?
So the new here means they are newly added to the plan. They weren't in the previous plan 5 years ago.
That's correct. And if you want to see the difference, there's an Appendix M on page 347, which I can jump to. But go ahead.
I don't need to see that. I just want to make sure I understand what new meant.
That is what it means.
And in this particular case, it strikes me these are the things to focus on, or for the city council to focus on, to make sure that they actually believe that they should do these things.
Yes, these.
In other words, as I understand it, these are new statements. They're commitments to new actions.
Yes, and they are based on ongoing actions and ongoing interests of the city staff and various agencies here in Champaign County.
But I'm trying to actually make that distinction. The new ones are new. That is, prior to this document being approved by the city council after we make a recommendation, these are new to our city council.
That is
Or are
correct.
they simply records of something that's already someplace else but hadn't been in this plan before?
These are newly proposed, and these are not requirements. These are intended as a guide.
Well, but the city is adopting this, saying this is what we intend to do.
That is presumably, hopefully so.
Yes, okay. Now, under pending, one of them, let's see. So complete installation, it went off the screen. You gotta
Yes,
go
here
down
it
a
is.
little bit.
Item 6, is that the one you're looking at?
Yes, complete installation of emergency backup power systems for remaining essential city facilities. Says pending and recommended for inclusion in future list of capital projects. So I'm trying to be clear for myself anyway, what pending means here and what recommended for inclusion in the CIP means by whom. I am oriented to the notion that action lists and plans ought to actually be action lists that people recognize they are committing to.
Yeah.
So maybe Scott or somebody else can tell me what actually is happening there.
It's not in action yet, so maybe this is better labeled as a new action that is pending. I'm trying to remember what we did for these
Okay.
kinds.
Hey,
What?
I guess I don't think we can really work all this out in real time, but in the staff going to the council, which they're going to still have to do. What I'm basically trying to argue is that I think this table is what's important for the council to recognize. Some people may think that these are actually decisions being committed to. And then one more is really a question. There's a reference later on to transfer of development rights in the boneyard. And that is listed as ongoing. I have either forgotten or was unaware that we had a TDR ordinance in Urbana and that it was ongoing in the boneyard. And maybe somebody can.
Yeah, Lou, I can address that. We actually do have a very small TDR, transfer of development rights. Now you're making me remember back about 5 years, the last time I had to look at it. I believe we do allow for I'd say kind of a mini version of a transfer
Okay.
of development rights. So if you have a property that backs up to the boneyard and like say half of your backyard is unusable because it's in the floodplain, you can transfer the rights to essentially that unusable land to somebody else so they can develop more
Okay.
on their land.
Okay.
I don't think it's ever been used.
Okay, and I apparently forgot about it. So that's what I just wanted to be reminded. Okay.
As you were talking, I remembered how the word pending is used as a status. Pending, as I recall, means that this was a new action back in 2015 and it's carried forward and it's still pending. It's not exactly new, but it's pending. So it's simply a status
Okay.
term that we're using.
Okay. Hasn't been done, but isn't
was-
a new recommendation. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Further questions for Ms. Bonte? No? Okay, well, thank you very much. Now, this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone who would like to speak in regard to this hazard mitigation plan, please raise your hand and I will call on you. I can see you in the attendees window. I don't see any hands raised. You can use your little cursor to raise your hand virtually. But I don't see anyone there. So therefore, I will close the public input portion of this public hearing and open it up for Plan Commission discussion and recommendations and possibly motions and a vote. So are there any discussion in regards to the hazard mitigation plan being adopted as an adjunct to the comprehensive plan? Don't see, Mr. Allred.
Yeah, not really a discussion, just a comment. I think it's great. The timing is perfect in the sense that the city's in the process of updating their comprehensive plan. So it's good to have this information. Hopefully, not only is it adopted as an amendment to the plan, but also has an impact in the content of the plan itself. So.
Great, thank you. Is there further commentary or questions or concerns about the hazard mitigation plan? Are there any, are we ready to make a motion in regard to the said plan? Ms. Billman,
Okay, I move that we forward plan case number 2419-CP-21 to the City Council with recommendation for approval.
motion by Ms. Billman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Allred. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
Mr. Hopkins?
And because I don't have paper in front of me, there seems to be a little bit of confusion about whether we are adopting an element, making an amendment, replacing an amendment, replacing an element. And especially with a new comprehensive plan coming up, it would be nice eventually to get some of this wording consistent. And I don't know what the wording says because I don't have the paper of the recommended motion in front of me.
Yeah, it does say the motion is to include the revised plan as an element of the city's comprehensive plan. So it's
Okay.
previously been included as an element, and this would presumably replace the.
Okay, but let's not make it presumably. Let's say that we're going to recommend adoption of this as an element of the comprehensive plan, replacing the 2015 document or whatever. But I'd like to be explicit so that when we look online on the website of the city, we actually know what claims to be our comprehensive plan.
That's good clarification. I'm looking down at the language. Recommendation to approve the proposed Champaign County Hazard Mitigation Plan update and adopt the plan as an element of the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan as amended. So let's just clarify that it is to replace the prior version of the hazard mitigation plan that was previously adopted.
Okay,
And I would recommend instead of element, we should just call it an amendment. That's what it was noticed as in the legal ad. I think that is the correct terminology. I will admit to reusing portions of the 2015 staff memo to be more efficient. So I think I just carried over that language saying element instead of amendment, but I think we should call it an amendment.
That's good. But that's good clarification. I don't think we need to necessarily amend the motion. I think that with that clarification in the record, I'm satisfied with the motion. I don't know if anybody else objects, we can fiddle with the wording of the motion. I don't see any objections, so let's call the motion good with the clarification as noted in the record.
All right, sounds good. Let's start with Mr. Hopkins.
yes,
Ms. McFarland,
Yes.
Ms. Yu,
Yes.
Mr. Allred,
Yes.
Ms. Billman,
Yes.
Mr. Fell,
Yes.
and Mr. Fitch.
Yes. So that is passed, that motion passes. And so that should go to council probably sometime in the early part of May. Is that right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes, I actually don't have the date in front of me.
Kevin, it's May 10th, or yeah, May 10th.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank
Will it go, I think this will go to committee of
Committee of
the
the
whole
whole.
first, correct?
Great.
That'll be on the 3rd then.
Anybody who
Oh.
wishes to weigh in further can please do so at those hearings. So, all right, well, that motion passes, and now we're on to a case of new business. We've got plan case 2418 S21, a request by Carl Hill and H. Allen Dooley for preliminary and final plat approval of South Ridge 8 subdivision. So, city staff,
Yes.
Ms. Trotter.
This is a request by Carl Hill and H. Allen Dooley for approval of a preliminary and final plat of South Ridge 8 subdivision. Preliminary and final plats can be considered for concurrent approval. And prior to tonight's meeting, staff received 2 letters of public input, which were sent out earlier today, both of which that I summarized earlier. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission make a recommendation to City Council to approve the request, including the submitted waiver request. This is a location map of the property. It was previously part of the Douglas Farm, which was annexed into the city in 2001. It is in the South Ridge neighborhood located south of Windsor Road and east of Philo Road. The property is L-shaped and only the east-west portion of the lot is included in the proposed preliminary and final plats. So that's that area shown in blue here. The proposed plats would subdivide the 6.32 acre tract into 27 lots to be developed as single-family homes. And the staff report stated that the lots would be 0.23 acres, but they're actually slightly smaller, ranging between 0.15 and 0.21 acres. That original number was taken from the total acreage divided by 27. So they're actually smaller once right-of-way is taken out. This is a zoning map of the property. It is zoned R2 for single-family residential. There is R2 and R3 zoning to the north and east, and county agricultural zoning and uses to the south and west. The proposed subdivision is consistent with the requirements of the R2 zoning district, and it would allow for the continuation of existing residential uses on the south side of Urbana. This is a future land use map. The comprehensive plan shows this area's residential suburban pattern, and the proposed subdivision would be consistent with that designation. This is a screenshot of the preliminary plat. So it shows the right-of-way and the 27 lots to be subdivided on north and south sides of the extended Hillshire Drive. The proposed subdivision does not require a traffic impact analysis, and the city engineer does not anticipate any access or congestion issues. The applicants have requested a waiver to allow Hillshire Drive to be extended and paved to 28 feet, where a minimum of 31 foot of width would be required. This would match other local streets in the subdivisions as a waiver was received for South Ridge 5, 6, and 7 when they were originally platted. The waiver also includes a condition that street parking will only be permitted on the south side of the street, and that's to allow more room for emergency access. This is a screenshot of the preliminary, or the final plat. To summarize, the 6.2 or 6.32 acre tract would be subdivided into 27 single-family residential lots. The proposed preliminary and final plats are consistent with the zoning designation. They are also consistent with the comprehensive plan. The plan meets the requirements of the Urbana Subdivision and Land Use Development Code, with the exception of the one requested waiver. And the waiver would not be harmful to other properties or negatively impact the public health and safety of the community. The Plan Commission has the following options for the recommendation or for the proposed and preliminary and final plats. Forward the case to City Council with a recommendation to approve as presented, including the requested waiver. Recommend to approve the final plats excluding the requested waiver, or forward the case to the City Council with a recommendation to deny the plats. Staff recommends approval of the proposed preliminary and final plats, including the waiver, and I'm available to take any questions for staff. I believe Carl Hill and Kevin Moglin are also here to make a statement and answer questions on behalf of the applicant.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Trotter. Are there questions for city staff?
Can I jump in real quick before any
Mr.
questions
Garcia?
come in? I'm looking it up. I believe that that what needs to be forwarded onto City Council is just the final plat. I believe the preliminary plat can be approved tonight, but let me look that up while discussion happens.
Yeah, it seems in memory that might be right. So if you could confirm, that's great. Questions for Ms. Trotter? I don't really see anything. So if the petitioner would like to now, we're going to treat this similar to a public hearing. So petitioner can address the commission now. And then if there's anyone on the call who wants to speak in support of the proposal, you will get a chance to address the commission. And then following that, if there's anybody opposed, you can address the commission, or if there's anybody else who wants to address the commission on this case, you will be allowed so. And then finally, the petitioner will have a chance to redress the commission, and then we'll close the public input and discuss and possibly entertain motions and vote. So if we could have, I don't see that they've been promoted to panelists. I'm not sure that matters, but we've got Mr. Hill, if you'd like to address the commission now, and anyone else associated with you who would also like to be part of your presentation. And I'm going to try to allow you to talk. Well, Mr. Hill, it looks like you should be allowed to talk.
It
Thank
should
you.
be open to talk at this point.
Yeah, it looks like you look like you're unmuted. I don't know if you could be muted on your side.
Turn the sound down on a computer.
Yeah, maybe. How about if I promote him to panelist? Can we try that?
I believe he is already promoted to a panelist at this time. Everything that should be allowing him to talk has been done. He may need to check any microphone connections. Sometimes that's an issue.
If he can hear us, the advice is make sure your microphone is on.
Right. And I can't chat, so I can't even post anything there.
I can give him a call real quick or send him a text and see if he can
Sure.
call in instead.
Please. If everybody could just give us a second, we will try to get this back on track.
So actually, while we're waiting, I did look up in our subdivision and land development ordinance. It says the plan commission shall approve with conditions or deny the preliminary plat and make a recommendation on all waiver requests to the city council, essentially. So I think since there is a waiver request in this, the plan commission would approve can approve the preliminary plat, but make a recommendation on that waiver request to city council. Then you'd also make a recommendation on the final plat to city council. Does all that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll probably just fold it all together and vote on it and make it clear in our remarks what we're voting.
Okay.
Any luck, Ms. Trotter?
I sent him a text. Let me try and call him real quick.
He's back in again. He's in here twice. Well, we can hear your phone.
Okay, well, you should be able to,
Now you're there.
now you should be able to hear me.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
all right. I just found that my old computer doesn't have a microphone. So I'm going to turn that one off.
Yeah,
Now you can hear me all right?
that's great.
Excellent, thank you. Sorry about that. I hadn't tried it before except with my laptop.
Well, it's a Zoom meeting, so anything can happen. So thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, I've been doing Zoom with my home builder association, so I thought it would come right in.
You never know. All right, well, sir, thank you for addressing the commission tonight.
Yes. And are you able to see me now?
We can see your name. We can't see your face, or I don't know if you're trying to show us anything.
Not at the moment. No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to install this as we're talking because it's asking me to go ahead and install this, which I thought I did earlier.
Sure.
What I'd like to say up front, now there were some comments made by the public regarding the work we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, when we were annexing the 60 acres, there was some mention brought up by some of the neighbors that we were destroying the neighborhood by our work there. And after some of the people went out and actually looked, they said, well, it looks like families are being raised there and enjoying the area, and it's working out well. Now, when I did this it's been 15 years since we did the last phase. So now that we're doing this phase, we have similar situations where people are a little concerned, which I understand. They think that their property values might be affected, but what is happening now is I looked at some of these people that wrote those notes, and the houses that we're selling now are more expensive than what they paid for theirs. And some of their homes are only a few years old. So I think it's a moot point to think that their property values are being hurt by what we're doing. Now, one of the things that was brought up with the plans that we have for the homes, the builder that is doing most of this work advertised these plans and said that this would be available. And of course, as that one was being built and sold, somebody else saw it. So they put another ad in without the house being built. They just put a picture. And that just kind of snowballed. And it seemed like everybody that would approach the realtor or the builder said, well, that's the house I want. So the builder's saying, well, okay, but I'm going to move down here. I'm going to move down here. What has happened is we're running out of lots, and people are still wanting the same kind of house. It's a great house, but he's been changing the nature, the decorating, the little bit of the architectural feature of each home so that they do look different. They are very much the same plan. Some have been changed somewhat, but not a whole lot, which I agree with the people as far as seeing similar homes. What they don't know is that about 17 years ago, a builder built 4 homes the same right at the entrance on Mark Trail off of Ridge Park Drive. Those 4 homes now nobody even recognizes as being the same. They do a little bit of different colors, different architectural features and such, embellishments and such. Some of them have craftsman pillars, some don't. He's varied it enough, I think, to make it look good. When I started this in '88, it's been a long time, I wanted to have homes that were nice homes, but not big and expensive, like as we'd been doing in Robeson Meadows and Maynard Lake, etc. And it has worked out pretty well. We did make the lot smaller. The idea was that people could buy a home and on a lot that they wouldn't have to spend the weekend taking care of it. And that's what has been selling. It's what's been going now for, I don't know, 32 years, 33 years. And this is now just a continuation of what we have been doing. The builder has asked the architect to come up with 2 or 3 more designs. He's been building about 5 or 6 at a time because of the demand. And I guess you've heard about the the demand that we've had here lately. Just, it was a COVID year last year, but it was our best year ever. But looks like people were trying to get out. There's no inventory really to speak of. So it just brought the demand up, and the builder has asked us as developers to get started earlier on this next phase, because he's now purchased all of the available lots that are single family, except for the cottages, and those are smaller, very, very small lots. And he's saying, I'm going to need some lots this summer because people are still coming in. He has people knocking at the door saying, I'd like to have a house. And it is one place where you can buy a new house in Champaign-Urbana for less than $250,000. 10 years ago, $250,000, of course, would have done a lot more, but this guy has been able to put a plan and a price together. The price point has been such that what we're seeing is a lot of millennials, a lot of singles, and even several people trying to retire and downsize coming into the area, make it a very diverse area age-wise. But it's they're doing it for the same reason. They want to downsize a little, and they want to be in a nice area. And I don't think there's anyone that can say this is not one of the best areas around. I get right now, I've been getting probably 5 to 10 calls a month. People looking for a lot. Some people say, oh, I want to buy a house, but I don't want to go through the building process. I just want a finished house. So can you do a spec house? And every time a house is started or even advertised, not even started, it sells. So we're pushing now to try to get things going. And we're just doing part of this, what was going to be the 8th phase. We're just doing half of it so that we can get it done more quickly. And as we get this one done, we hope to finish the rest of it, which is Melissa Lane, so that we can finish out that whole 60 acres. Now, 20 years ago, when we planned this and we annexed the 60 acres, we had Southridge 5, 6, and 7. And through the years, as we developed, we had to break those into smaller developments. So in 2001, we incorporated all of the waivers, the zoning, all that stuff into the 60 acres. But because we now call them 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, it's going through a different process because of that nomenclature, not because of the actual land use or the land involved. So what I want to assure the people that are concerned, there won't be water running onto their lot from another lot. The extra dirt that we have out there, it's growing grass, but it's our topsoil that we'll be using to put back on the areas once we develop them. And there was one other concern. I don't think anybody's going to have to worry about their house value going down. Things has just been going great guns there, and the values and prices have been going up. Part of that, of course, is because of the lumber prices and material prices. So those who are concerned, visit Arizona, Florida, Texas, places where you can pick between 1 or 2 or 3 colors and build your house. I think they're going to find that once these houses are done, landscaped, the important thing is that people like their house, love their house, and take care of it. And that's what we've been promoting for the last 33 years. I hope I haven't spoke too much, but if there's any other questions, feel free to ask.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hill. Are there any questions at this time from the commission for Mr. Hill? Don't see any questions from, Ms. Billman does have a question.
Yeah, you mentioned that you do plan to, at some point, continue with that west section along Philo Road?
Correct.
Okay, at some point, do you plan to extend Hillshire Drive to Philo Road?
Correct.
Okay, but not now.
No, in order to get this done as quickly as possible, we know that that connection is going to take more time. And we thought we would stop right where we did so that we could get this done more expediently. Now, once this project is done, I'm pretty sure the developer, the contractor wants to go ahead and finish Melissa Lane.
Okay, and this section is zoned R2, and that's what you don't plan to try to change that zoning?
No, in fact, we changed the R3 to R2 because we found that there was not as much demand for the duplexes as we thought there would be.
Okay. All right, and so the way that you would rezone that other section along Philo Road would also depend on demand, or do you?
We're not rezoning. We're leaving the zoning as it was 20 years ago.
Even that section too? Okay.
Oh, yes, yes, definitely.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Great, thank you. Further questions at this time from Mr. Hill? Okay, is there any, thank you, Mr. Hill.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. Is there anybody who's on the call who wants to speak in favor of this proposal? Or is there anybody who wants to speak either against the proposal or just in general as to the proposal before us? And I do see one hand up in the attendees list, and I see another one, and I'll call on you roughly not roughly, in the order that I saw your hands come up. So I've got Hossein Bagheri was the first one I saw come up. So I'm going to mark you, and you should be able to talk now, Mr. Bagheri.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can barely hear you.
Okay, how about now? Better?
Still still very faint.
Okay, maybe next person ask the question and I try to fix it if that's okay.
Yeah, it's so faint we can't really make it out.
I think he recommended we go on to the next person and he'll try to
get out and come back in. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try that. In that case, I've got someone called Gaither.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And if you would just say your full name, that would be great for the record.
My name's Daniel Gaither.
Thank you, Daniel. Mr. Gaither, please proceed.
The only concern I has is the whole thing about all the houses looking the same. I know that's not how they planned it, but if you did build 27 right now, you'd have 27 identical houses. I know they are different colors, but it's still very clear. So that's my only concern. And then my other questions for everyone, I don't know who addresses this. We still don't have even stop signs on 2 of the places around here. We have no city trees in all this new development. And those were my questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gaither. Do we have any questions from the commission for Mr. Gaither? Let me just ask city staff right now. There's not a site plan that's in play here. There's certainly no design requirement to a plat. So I'm just, I hear the concerns and they're valid, but I'm not sure tonight that the Plan Commission could do anything about that, especially in regard to the style of houses, but also in regard to the trees, which if we had a site plan, we could, if we were talking about a site plan, we'd have some ability to weigh in on that. But if you could just speak to those issues before we move on to the next person.
Right. Yeah, Tyler, you're correct. The plat review is pretty narrowly defined. So design of houses is not really something that can be considered when reviewing a plat. With respect to street trees, our current subdivision ordinance, which is showing its age, does not require street trees to be installed when areas are subdivided. We are working on an update to our subdivision ordinance, but that will have that, but that is not yet a requirement. So to install street trees, the city would have to go out and do that at our expense. I'm not sure if that's on Public Works' radar. Also with respect to missing some stop signs out there, but I can certainly bring these concerns to our Public Works Director, Tim Cowan, and see if there are plans to do the stop signs and install street trees down here.
Yeah, I think a little follow-up would be great.
Yes, please do. I emailed them and never heard back a while ago. And then last question on the street parking, was that for every street on this that had the exemption for the 28 feet? Because that is an issue right now, that we all have people on the north and south side. So you have people stopping and going through, and it's quite dangerous on the main road on marked trails.
As far as I know, what we're considering tonight is only for that section that is, I guess, on the southeast edge. And just for that portion, I think is what we're considering tonight in regards to the street parking on one side. The rest of it would be another thing for Public Works, I think, to come out there and make sure that the proper traffic is enforced. So if Mr. Garcia, if you could add that to your list to follow up with Public Works and then to follow up the residents.
Yes, I've added that to my list. And Mr. Gaither, if you would like to follow up with me, I can give you my email address if you would like to take that down, just so that I have your contact information so I can follow back up with you.
Yes, thank you.
Are you ready to write it down?
Yes.
Okay. It is KJ Garcia. That's GARCIA at urbanaillinois.us.
Sitting here all this time. You're sitting here all this time.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks. Mr. Gaither, is there anything further?
Nope. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Sure, thank you. Now we've got Kevin Moglin. Where'd you go?
I'm here.
There you
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Great, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of Southridge 8. You know, this is the 8th phase of Southridge subdivision. It's obviously been a successful development, and I think this would make a great addition to the city of Urbana. So thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Moglin? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, now we have Kimberly Harden. You should be able to speak.
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to echo some of the things that have already been said, but I would invite any of you to drive through Southridge right now. I think perhaps some of the concerns would be a little more evident since construction really started in earnest over a year ago now. It's been incredibly difficult just as far as traffic that's been on the roads, lots of different challenges that we've had. I wouldn't necessarily count myself as being against this. The land's going to be developed. I think, you know, any of us that chose to build here were aware of that. My concern is the way that the land is being developed. I'd also have to respectfully disagree with Mr. Hill when he says that there's 4 houses on Mark Trail and you wouldn't know now that it's the same houses. You can very clearly tell. I know exactly the 4 houses he's referring to. And I think if you drive through some of this new construction in Southridge, it's very evident that this is the same house. And I absolutely agree. The builders put on some different finishes, some different touches, but I'm also unsure where the information's coming from that these houses that are being built are around the same price point as the homes that were previously built in Southridge. based on my research and the information that I've seen, that's not the case. There is a difference. These new houses are what I would refer to as starter houses, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think a neighborhood needs a mix of different houses. Certainly want the neighborhood to be diverse and to encourage lots of people. But I think there is a real concern about how will these houses hold up over 3 to 5 years. We're not necessarily sure at this point. This is new.
Okay, anything further?
I think that's probably all. The only other thing that I would mention is, will there be a homeowners association for Southridge?
I can't answer that, and the plan commission can't really weigh in on that. It's not a zoning issue. I think you should, I don't really know how you even go about establishing one of those, to be quite honest with you.
Well, and I've emailed Mr. Hill about it. I hadn't received an answer. So I understand that might not be within the realm of this meeting, but just wanted to ask.
No, I understand. I don't know. Have you talked to your neighbors about it?
I have. Yeah, we've had several conversations about it.
Huh. Well, I'm not much help on that. I don't,
It's okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know how you go about starting one of those. Maybe, I don't know if city staff has any advice to give on that.
No, I'm also in the dark. I mean, the first thing I would do is just go to the internet and search, how do I start a homeowners association? Yeah, I don't know. I've never started one myself and haven't had to deal with it.
No, I like that idea. Google hasn't failed me yet, so it's a good idea.
Okay.
It's not, yeah, okay. Well, if that's the best we can do, then I sort of sorry, but I appreciate your testimony. Is there any questions for Ms. Harden at this time? Ms. Billman?
Hi, yeah, Kimberly, can you talk a little bit more about the current houses being built or future houses to be built at a lower price point? What?
Sure. I think my general concern with that is, when we built in this neighborhood, we were under the impression that the houses were going to be varied. There were several price points to choose from. If you look at the houses along Memory Lane that face the field over there, those are a higher price point than the houses that are currently being built. Same for most of the houses along Horizon. To the best of my knowledge, these current houses are a lower price point than the houses that are currently here. So my concern is, we all know the old saying, you don't want to be the highest priced house in the neighborhood. You don't want to be the lowest priced house in the neighborhood. So what are the home values going to do in the future? What's going to be the value of these homes? I know I've had people express concerns as far as the quality of the homes that are being built. And my purpose is not to say anything about the builders of these homes or anything like that. But again, it's a concern because Mr. Hill mentioned they want to get this process moving. And that's consistently what we've seen throughout this process. Hurry, 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 hurry. They're putting up these houses as quickly as they can.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Hill, we'll give you a chance at the end to come back and talk to us. So we got at least maybe one more person, I think, to get through, and then we'll give you the last chance to speak to us. Mr. Begary, it appears like you're back. I still can't hear you.
Can I email my question to you?
You can, yeah, I did. I can barely hear that. You asked if you can email, the answer is absolutely yes. You can email that to city staff and that will be incorporated in the packet to be forwarded to council.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry you're having trouble with the sound. So I think that's I've called on everyone who had their hands up. Is there anybody else on the call among the attendees who would like to address the commission? And I see Linnell Lacey. You should be able to,
Good evening.
You're there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you including us in this meeting. And I believe that I know one of the questions Mr. Bagari wishes to ask, and that is whether any of the lots might be open for purchase by a Horizon Lane resident if they wanted to purchase a plat behind them. I know that there has been some interest expressed there, and I don't believe an answer has come through yet. So without speaking for Mr. Bagari, I do know that this has been a question that has been posed, and I'm wondering if Mr. Hill is in a position to answer that this evening. I also would like to express that we knew when we moved out here that being a relatively new area, it wasn't going to stay open. The horizon view really wasn't going to always have that horizon view. However, I would also like to echo Kimberly's comments about the designs of the houses, and I do understand also that the documents or the protocols don't currently speak to for the city to have something to say about it. I will say, however, this particular builder has built, I think he broke ground behind our home on the 8th of April last year. And I believe in that time, it's been close to a dozen homes, maybe. It seems like it. When you consider both sides of Vernon and both sides of Horizon, it is among the residents known as Cookie Cutter Row. They do all look the same. I have concerns about the quality because I have seen in my neighbors' homes the sod not being laid properly and sinkholes in the yards, such that as I went to take care of one neighbor's animals while they were away, the neighbor specifically said, if you come at night, please make sure that you bring a flashlight, because the last thing I would want would be for you to fall and break your ankle. And sure enough, the hole was pretty awful. I also don't want to say anything negative against any of the builders. I do think that they seem to be quite cordial, but I do also notice we could use some help, maybe some guidance from Mr. Hill to speak with the builders about noise pollution and the trash that's being left behind. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be builder specific. We do have a lot of empty water bottles and the coverings from siding and roofing that, are blowing all over. And we did have one that brought in a dumpster, but the dumpster was filled from here to heaven and not really emptied appropriately. And so that trash was blowing all over. I guess I would like to see, and I don't know if this is the appropriate forum, but I would like for there to be something in the notes about quiet times. When we have construction in our backyard, and it's my understanding that the quiet time is 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., I believe. And we have had some of the crews here working at 6:40 a.m. And if they're not working at 6:40 a.m., then sometimes a truck will come in with a huge load of lumber, and the lumber's dumped at 6 a.m. so that the crew can start, at 7 or 7:15, and often they're starting early. And when you've listened to that 7 days a week, you really look forward to the holidays, thinking that maybe we'll have some quiet time on a holiday. And nope, because he's in a hurry to build, we're working on the holidays as well. So it seems the residents are missing some of that quiet time. And that is a concern that we would love to see addressed as well. And so with that, I will leave anything else for others to speak to, but I did want to mention the quiet time being an issue, the trash being left being an issue, the trucks parking in front of our driveways so we can't get in or out, and also blocking the mail boxes so the postman or the postal service is unable to deliver the mail. And these are some of the issues that I hear about frequently from my neighbors and that I have also experienced. And I thank you very much for your time and for your ear.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Is there any questions from Commission for Ms. Lacy? Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Is there anybody else who wants to address the commission before we ask Mr. Hill to address some of these concerns, if he wishes to? No, okay. In that case, Mr. Hill, you should be able to speak to us.
Okay,
Again.
can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Is my picture up yet?
No picture.
No picture. Okay, well, I guess you can consider yourselves lucky. Well, the first thing was the HOA. It was established in '06. The people of the subdivision will be receiving a letter shortly that will describe what has been transpiring. In 2001, I had a deal with Robin Hall from the Park District that when we completed the retention cells and put bike trails around them, that the Park District would take it and they would take care of the maintenance. Well, in '06, when we were ready to do the phase that had that retention cell in it, there was a new director of the Park District, and she told us that the board decided not to have parks or retention cells less than 5 or 5.5 acres or something, or excuse me, less than 7 acres. And we had 5+ acres and the land was already developed around it. So we were pretty well stuck. So the city asked us to form an association in order to take care of the maintenance on the retention cells. So we did that in '06, and my partner and I, Alan Dooley, have been the association since that time and have carried the insurance, have done the maintenance, and saved everybody out there that's lived in the subdivision, $50 to $75 a year since they've been there. So there is a homeowners association. We're going to turn it over to a new board the 1st of July of this year. And the residents will be receiving information on that forthwith. I don't know if you want to actually get into the other items that people were speaking to, since it's not really a function of what we were doing tonight.
Yeah, a lot of that is really more of a courtesy, I think, between the builders and the residents. We already addressed the issue of the style elements. That's not something we can do anything about tonight. But certainly, the concerns have been noted for the record here. So if there's anything you could do in speaking with the builder themselves, I'm sure the residents would appreciate it.
Oh, yes, that is a conversation we have quite often. Before this particular builder came in and started building, we had a builder that did not even have a dumpster and just dumped everything in the front yard, and it blew all over, and we went around collecting it. But because he only did 1 or 2 houses at a time, it was not much of an issue. My partner Bud and I would go around and take care of things. But since we are building, this guy is building like 5 or 6 at a time, and they're in a hurry because people say, I want to move in. So what do you do? He has been doing better than the previous builders as far as taking care of garbage, but I have to admit there are days that the wind is voracious, and even people that were putting out their recyclables, they were blowing down the street. So we are sympathetic. We are doing our best. I have asked the builder to come up with at least 3 more plans, which he is working on. He says, I'm having trouble getting people to purchase another plan because they like this one. So I've asked him to change the elevation somewhat and see what he can do with it. It is a nice plan. They're calling it a starter home. Somebody said it was cheap. One of the ladies was talking about the house values. Well, she doesn't know the values of the ones that are yet to close this year. And for example, we have one on Vernon Drive that's 370,000. Theirs comes nowhere close to that. They're 100,000 less. We have one getting ready to start on Horizon that is 350,000. And that's right across the street from some of these people's homes that was they bought for 230, 240, maybe 270. So we do have quite a variation on Horizon Lane as far as architecture and price. We do have more consistency on Vernon because there are quite a few of these homes, and that's because the lots were available. But I am encouraging and trying to help the builder make things different. Now, of course, weather has an effect. People have to go back, builders have to go back and do their punch list once things settle, et cetera, et cetera. But these homes are built stronger than they were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. They have 2x6 walls. They're built, they exceed code. And those people that say they're cheap need to see what the price is really on them. There's good materials, granite countertops, nice cabinets. So we hate to hear those rumors being promoted because it's just not true.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Hill? In that case, I'm going to close the public input portion, and thank you to all for your remarks. And now we will go into a Plan Commission discussion and possibly entertain motions and maybe vote. So is there any discussion on this from Plan Commission? Mr. Fell.
My only real comment is that it's not, I'll say, super evident from the report. If you zoom out, you can see that eventually it looks like Hillshire Drive is going to be an east-west pretty eventually substantial east-west street, the only one between Windsor and whatever's down there. So my concern is giving a waiver to have the reduction of the width of the street, because my fear is that although the width is probably okay now, okay for 10 years, eventually we're gonna widen that street, but that's going to be at a point where everyone has mature trees and sidewalks have to come out and things like that. So this may be a engineering or staff more issue, but that's my concern is we're giving a waiver for a narrower street where eventually we're not going to want that narrow street.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Felton. Ms. Billman?
I agree with Mr. Fell wholeheartedly. I was thinking the same thing. In fact, I prefer it be wider rather than narrower because it's clear it's going to become a main road out there.
So, yeah, Mr. Hopkins?
I've got two parts of this, and agree and disagree. So one of the things that our comp plan does is that it has a mobility map. And although I'm not where I can actually get a hold of a copy because I'm in Ohio, I have access to a image of it. And Trail Ridge is identified in the comp plan as one of the 2 east-west continuous roads. That is, the intent is that it connect Philo and High Cross. And as far as I can tell, but I don't have access to stuff, that is being sustained and in any case is not affected by this particular subdivision plat. Myra Ridge is identified as one of the north-south minor arterials for connectivity. And as far as I can tell, that is continued in this in a reasonable fashion. And Hillshire could be, because of the way our maps are set up, the until there is enough development, the pointers indicate where a range of where they could be. And as of the map I have, which is the 2005 map, that was not identified as one of the minor arterials, but it's plausible that it could be. So yes, this is relevant and it's one of the uses of our plan. But my second point is I live on Mumford Drive. Mumford Drive is a minor arterial having roughly the same function between Race Street and Philo Road. That is, it is one of the relatively few continuous streets that connect them and is identified, I believe, I don't know what the current transportation stuff is, but I think it's identified as a minor arterial. When that was paved, we argued, and I believe, though I'm not where I can get the data, got it as a 28-foot street with the proviso that there would be parking on one side. And the idea that minor collectors going through residential neighborhoods should be wide enough for parking on both sides is, in my view, a bad idea. And so if indeed the standard and the western part of Mumford Drive is the one I know, if that is indeed 28 feet, then I think 28 feet is okay, even though Hillshire may be a minor arterial.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I am looking at the mobility map. Right now, the designation I see for Mumford is minor collector. The designation for Trails Drive is also minor collector. So I believe to your point is that according to the mobility map, the collector from Philo to High Cross would be Trails eventually.
No, but there should be two. So
Okay.
Trails is one of them. And the southern one by the mobility map is not yet identified. There's just so it could be that Hillshire is intended to be that. I don't know whether that decision has been made.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you. I don't know if city staff has any further to shed on that, including the width of Mumford.
I don't, I would agree with Lou. It's really hard to tell by the mobility map what street that could be. I think it's just kind of general, saying there will be some street in this general area at some point that will go all the way through between Philo and High Cross. With respect to the street width, our Public Works Director, Tim Cowan, was okay with the waiver to reduce the street width by 3 feet here. He did suggest that we would only allow parking on one side. So like Lou said, that's how Mumford Drive is. And that's really to allow our fire trucks, which have gotten wider over the years, better access during emergencies. I do want to point out that narrower streets tend to have slower traffic on them, and we encourage slower traffic in residential areas. So really, the wider you make streets, the more it encourages folks to drive fast through the neighborhood. Also, I think this was probably in the staff report as well, but I'll just point it out here. I think, and Kat, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other streets in Southridge 5 through 7 also received a waiver to allow the 28-foot wide streets. Now, as I think it was Mr. Gaither said earlier, I think there is parking on both sides of some of those streets, and that can be problematic. So I think here it seems like a reasonable request to allow the waiver, but then restrict parking to one side.
Okay, anything further, Mr. Hopkins?
No, I wish I were where I could follow up, but I can't, so.
Does anybody want to follow up on Mr. Hopkins' points?
Mildly, the best I can do is to scale the GIS map. Mumford Drive's 30-foot wide, out of curb to out of curb.
On the western end?
Correct.
Okay. So it may be 31 feet, but even to get it to that, we had to have parking on only one side. But that's, I agree, that's an issue if Hillshire is indeed a minor collector, which the other streets in Southridge are not, other than Trail Ridge.
Yeah, that's correct. And the other one's not designated. So the next way through is on Church, which is a major or a minor arterial.
No, Church is will be a major arterial.
Eventually, yes. Or Curtis, I'm sorry.
Well, Curtis as well.
Yeah, right. So Curtis and Church would be the only way through further that way, further to the south. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up on this in regard to that waiver or any other aspect of the plat? Mr. Allred.
Yeah, I would just say, I agree that, smaller or streets with a narrower width that are really residential access streets going through a neighborhood, it makes sense for me that we would allow a waiver for something like that. When I look at the mobility map, I mean, there's a mark that seems kind of not randomly placed, but not placed to necessarily align with anything that existed at that point in time. So I think it would be inappropriate or speculative, at least, for us to make a decision about a neighborhood street in this subdivision based on that.
Sure.
That's it.
Thank you. Anything further from any of the commissioners? Okay. In that case, I mean, I hear you. I think we could, to take the waiver out now, is the other side of Hillshire, is that also 28 feet where it's going to meet up?
Yes.
So what, if we didn't allow the waiver here, we would have a wider street meeting up then to a narrower street. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as Kevin mentioned, and also in the staff report, the same waiver for the 28-foot wide street.
For the last recent additions, yeah.
Right, so the extension of Hillshire Drive would connect to a 28-foot wide Hillshire Drive. So if it's built wider, it will bottleneck a little bit.
Sure. Okay, that's just for clarification. All right, anything further? Are we ready to, does anybody have a thought about a motion? Seems pretty quiet. In that case.
Sorry, I was just looking at trying to find the wording.
Trying to find the number?
Me too.
The memo here.
Okay. In that case, Mr. Allred?
So knowing that we want to do this as two kind of separate things, try this. I'll move that we approve for plan case 2418 S21. I move that we approve the preliminary plat with the recommendation to approve the waiver. Am I getting this right?
I think
And
that sounds
then
right.
Yeah,
I
that sounds right.
recommend that we forward for approval the final plat to council.
Okay, that's one motion for two aspects of the preliminary plat and the final plat, and I'm okay with that. It's clear enough, I think, from the way the motion was made.
Second,
Mr. Hopkins, second. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Is there further discussion on the motion? I don't see any hands. Therefore, whenever you're ready, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Let's go Ms. Billman,
Yes.
Mr. Fell,
Yes.
Mr. Fitch,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
yes.
Ms. McFarland.
I think that was a yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And Ms. Yu? She may have dropped off.
She had to drop off, I think.
Okay. And Mr. Allred?
Yes.
Kevin, her hand is raised. She's in
Okay.
the attendees list.
Ah.
and-
Oh, she moved to the wrong.
I'm gonna take that hand raise as a yes. Are we? Oh, here she comes.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how you got shuffled off to that.
Oh,
Other.
I was disconnected. When I reconnected again, it just put
Oh,
me
you
off.
went there. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, we appreciate that. So that motion passes. And so that'll be going to the council. Is that committee of whole on the 10th as well?
To the best of my knowledge, that is only going to council. Kevin.
Only council. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe the 17th or something.
No, I think earlier
Okay.
the committee of the whole for the previous case is actually the 3rd, and then this one is council on the 10th.
Okay, great, great. So we got those dates in the record. All right, well, thank you very much for that. As our audience participation, does anybody who is still in attendance wish to address the Plan Commission on a subject of your choosing uninterrupted for 5 minutes time, consistent with the city's audience participation policy? If so, please raise your hand and I'll call on you, and then Mr. Garcia will start the timer. I don't see anyone. Therefore, audience participation is closed. Mr. Garcia, do we have a staff report? It looks like we do regarding the comprehensive plan.
We do. I'm really excited that we have a staff report tonight, an update on the comprehensive plan. So I'm going to reintroduce Lily Wilcock and Andrea Rudy to you all, but first I just wanted to open by saying I'm really excited at all the great outreach that these two have been spearheading, and they are here to tell you about that tonight. I think we're really doing a fantastic job of reaching groups in Urbana that we normally have trouble reaching, and they've put such great effort forth. So I'm excited to have them share an update with you.
Hey,
Great.
thanks, Kevin. And could you give sharing privileges to Lily? She's going to share a screen for everybody.
I have sharing privileges. I am.
Great. And so,
There you go.
Anyway, so you've seen this image before. This is our logo for Imagine Urbana. And our next slide, and we're going to be quick tonight because we know that you've had a long meeting, but we certainly want to allow time for questions from the Plan Commission. This page really is a snapshot of all the activity that we've had to date. And as many of you know, COVID kind of slowed us down as far as in-person outreach, but we've really hit the ground running in large part due to Dustin's class. The Urban Planning 510 class has been amazing. We've got, I think there's 21 students that are part of that class, and they have divided the class up into different groups that are outreach, like Kevin said, to groups that we don't normally hear from. And so those groups include the Black community, Latinx, people with disabilities, and also second and third shift workers, which sometimes we don't think about that, but those people have a difficult time in getting involved in government. And so the class has really done an amazing job of outreach. So you can see that we have 39 in-person hours of outreach. And all of this has been pretty recently, again, as COVID restrictions eased up, we've been able to do those types of activities. So we've had events at Salt and Light, the Urbana Free Library, the Farmers Market at Lincoln Square, and then also one-on-one interviews via web calls, Zoom calls, et cetera. Some of the other things I'll highlight, we already talked about the urban planning class, but we also, because getting out to the youth is so important, we've had an intern from the Urbana High School Executive Internship Program who's just been wonderful. She has, in large part due to Deb McFarland, gotten us involved with Dream Girls Academy. And Deb, we can't thank you enough for that group. There's been 2 sessions with these young women that are, I think, ages 8 to maybe high school. And it's been wonderful to get their feedback. We've also had 2 interns through the Civitas program this summer, and they did a lot of the background work, working really closely with Lily on the data aspects that are kind of behind the scenes. So we've also launched our website, which Lily will bring that up in just a moment. Oh, there she is. Awesome. So the Urbana Imagine website went live in early February, and people can register. There's places on the site where you can go on an idea wall and post your comments. There's also an Urbana Places map where people can post their thoughts about different locations in Urbana, whether it's an intersection or maybe, I know the Urbana Free Library has had lots of hits because it's one of their favorite places, but it's also, you know, places for people to report on anything that they'd like to improve. So it's a great website. There's a couple of videos that if you could take some time and look at them. One is on how the plan impacts various people in Urbana, and you don't have to live in Urbana to be affected by the comprehensive plan. And so you can see that, and as well as Lamont Peppers has done a great video on just explaining about the comprehensive plan process. So we'll go back to that number slide just quickly, see what other things to highlight. So you can see the presentations made, going back to the website views that we've had to date, and we really haven't promoted much yet. You can see that we've had some media coverage, but we're just now starting to promote it. And Lily, I'll have you go to the event slide and talk about some of the events that we've got scheduled that are coming.
Yeah, as you saw on the last slide, there's a lot going on there, but there has been one in-person event that we really are co-sponsoring, and we're really trying to do events that are not really necessarily city events. We're really trying to work with community organizations that are already working within the community of Urbana. And so you're seeing a list of events that have dates. What you're missing right now is things like tabling events, interviews that are happening, a lot of targeted outreach. But it's an important thing that we've actually got some things coming up that you can attend if you'd like to. And there's a lot of, you know, as these things keep happening and the summer and the weather is turning around, there's more opportunities for outdoors and distance events within the community. And there's all sorts of different community groups we'll talk a little bit about later, but community groups that have really offered up their spaces and their events to partner with collecting the whole community's vision for Urbana in the future. And so we're really excited about that because this has really just been an amazing process of like how much the community really wants to engage with the city and make sure that the vision of their community and their member organizations and their trusted relationships are involved in the visioning of the city of Urbana.
Great, thanks, Lily. So we talked about the promotion. The square you see in bright green, this is actually a 6-inch by 8-inch postcard that's going to be going out to all Urbana zip codes, about 21,000 households. And we're hoping to get that out in the latter part of May. We'll have that out to everybody. And as you can see, there are 4 languages on the postcard. So we have the survey that's going to be available via texting is coming out soon. You can see that there, we're going to have 4 texting languages, Chinese, French, and Spanish. Lily and I have been working with the vendor right now on testing all of those to make sure that those surveys are working properly. As soon as that testing is complete, we'll then release the postcard for the mailing. And again, the postcard is promoting the website if you want to go online, or you can do the text survey.
These are some of the groups that we've partnered with so far. And so what you're looking at right now is not necessarily a list of groups that we plan on working with. These are groups that we're already working with. We have a lot of other groups that we're reaching out in the upcoming months. And these are groups that are helping us with translations or helping us with events that they already have going on. They are groups that have small groups, they focus groups, they have board meetings that are streamed live. These are all sorts of events that we're just tagging along and letting people know about this community visioning process. We're really trying to again, sink into the community. As right now, the city of Urbana, we're really trying to expand who we talk to, our audience. And it's not just folks who know about the city of Urbana or an insular selective group. It's really trying to broaden that and strengthen those relationships. Really quickly, I just want to emphasize a couple of things that have been really exciting in the past couple of months. I hope that the next time that me and Andrea come and give you an update of the comprehensive plan, there's going to be even more stories. But just a quick update. One of the last weekend, Silver Hearts is a group out of Silverwood neighborhood that's in Southeast Urbana. And the comprehensive plan and the urban planning class at the University of Illinois teamed up, and we went to and volunteered at handing out groceries in that community. And in the bags, we had survey materials, and as we're handing out, at least Andrea and I, we were talking to folks about the comprehensive plan and the importance of actually sharing your vision and your concerns about the community with the city. And so that was a really amazing, rewarding experience. We're planning on doing that again, just to make sure that we're really getting that opportunity out there. Another one is Dream Girls Academy. As mentioned, as a quick shout out to a plan commissioner, Deb McFarland. It's a nonprofit. It really focuses on youth, women, people in the African-American community. And they did a several part series, a workshop, just collecting the comments and concerns and the vision of Urbana and what the immediate concerns are, and also kind of talking about government and civics a little bit with the Dream Girls Academy. And that was held by our high school intern, Devangana. And so that was a really amazing thing that's what we're also capturing in this comprehensive plan. We also, Andrea, you can talk about this a little bit, but the Champaign County Congolese community, Andrea has been on their Facebook Live events and interviewed by the president, who's elected by the members of the Congolese community. And so that's just talking more, getting the word out about how your vision is important to the city of Urbana. Folks who are new to the community and just trying to learn more about that.
And Lily, you might also mention the Dr. Ellis neighborhood, how Deb McFarland was instrumental, of course, in bringing that group together for us.
Yeah, as mentioned in the last update about the comprehensive plan, about how important the community is in getting the comprehensive plan out and collecting the vision and the work that's being done by all sorts of people outside of staff and outside of Andrea and I. Yes, Deb McFarland also helped us with the Dr. Ellis neighborhood, and the U of I plan making class facilitated a meeting. Justin Allred is the professor, another plan commissioner, facilitated a meeting with the Dr. Ellis neighborhood group, and we actually collected a lot of concerns in the neighborhood and also comments about the future, and answered some questions too as well. So that's been a fantastic conversation that we hope to just keep going. Quickly, I'd like to just quickly mention a little bit about upcoming updates. So right now we're working on a 2005 comprehensive plan assessment document. So really kind of looking at the 2005 comprehensive plan and assessing what really worked and what didn't work. Things that were completed, things that weren't completed, and why. So some things, for instance, were implementation strategies that were identified by outside agencies that we were going to work with to meet. some things were really connected to goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan 2005 that have maybe changed, since the last recession and the last recession, the two recessions since the 2005 comprehensive plan. You know, things have changed across the country, and that's really changed a lot of things in as far as those implementation strategies. So assessing that, talking a little bit to that is going to help us try to create this new plan and really talk a little bit more about, you know, what's happening on the city level, what's worked, and how we can plan for the future. And then in the fall, we're really hoping that fall or winter, we're hoping that we can really process this initial larger phase of community engagement, and we can process that in a document or report. These are some of the largest things that we're really hearing from residents. We're hearing from people who work and shop and play in Urbana. And those are really kind of distilling into themes. So this larger form of community engagement that if you go onto our website, imagineurbana.com, you can participate in, and you can kind of see, there's a couple of tools where you can see people's input and you can respond to it. You can see what folks are saying and what they're talking about. And you can actually add your own voice on top of that or to it. But we are kind of coming to a place where we're seeing some reoccurring comments of things that are really coming from that. That's what that report is really in the fall and winter really going to be focusing on. And so this summer, you're going to see a lot more events, a lot more targeted outreach, a little bit more of the broad outreach. And then from there, we're really going to have to go to a more specific, smaller groups, interactive educational activities, where we get into, more of the talking about trade-offs and scenarios that happen with making a comprehensive plan.
And I think this particular slide is really the crux of how we're approaching the comprehensive plan this time, is that it's really coming up from the feedback that we receive, that we don't have preconceived ideas of what these different themes are going to be. We're really waiting for this feedback and seeing what bubbles up from there. And then, as Lily mentioned, then having that deeper dive into discussions regarding those themes. And we've got some great ideas on different videos and interactive webinars that we can do in that phase. But first, we want to have this broader engagement and develop those themes and see where we're at that time. So we'd be glad to answer any questions, or if there's additional information you'd like to see or suggestions. It's been a great process to this point. We've had to pivot several times due to COVID and some of the other, just information that came along. But it's been a great experience to date.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions regarding Ms. Rudy or Ms. Wilcock in regard to the planning process as they've described it so far? It looks like you're off the hook. Thank you very much for all you're doing for the city.
Yes.
I'm glad it's going so well.
Contact us at any time. Lily and I are available. So if you have any input, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, point well taken. Thank you. And again, thank you for what you're doing for the city. And I look forward to an outstanding outcome of this. So,
thank you so much.
Okay, that concludes the staff report, I think, unless there's anything else, Mr. Garcia, you would like to add?
There is nothing else.
In that case, we don't have a study session to my knowledge, and therefore I'm going to say we are adjourned at approximately 8:49. Let's call it 8:49.